except by the blood of the one who shed it. Do not defile the land where you live, and where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites.
Okay. Huh. Um. Too much going on here at once. So as we have seen before, the Levites, they don't really have their own, they don't have their inheritance among the people. They're kind of taken up care of, by, those, the other tribes. And so here that, this is being told, this is the, what they're going to have, the land that they're going to have to live in, and where they can grow their crops or have their places for their cattle, their livestock. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's actually, a couple different, like the measurements are a little bit different in there, which I kind of wondered about. Let's see. Get back to my PowerPoint. If that don't work, it's just gonna have to be what it is now. Let's see. I'll first add this. Numbers 35, the Lord spoke to Moses, commanded the sons of Israel to give to the Levites cities to live in and pasture for their cattle and their herds. And then, of course, the cities of refuge, and have 42 cities. So of course, anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee to the cities of refuge. So it's for like what we would consider manslaughter. It's not like it's unintentional death. It's not, if they're real guilty of murder, then they have to pay for it. And the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the blood avenger. The blood avenger shall put the murderer to death if they're found to be, if they're found guilty. Blood pollutes the land, and no explanation can be made for the land. No expiation can be made for the land for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. And so you shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell. For the Lord, I the Lord, am dwelling in the midst of the sons of Israel. So always, when there's blood spilt, especially if it is intentional, there has to be payment made. But so it's here, you like the number. Like at first it says, shall reach. Let's see. Shall reach from the wall of the town outward 1,000 cubits all around. You shall measure outside the town for the east side 2,000 cubits, for the south side 2,000 cubits, for the west side 2,000 cubits, and for the north side 2,000 cubits. And with the town in the middle, this shall belong to them as pasture land for their towns. There's a couple places in here. It has different measurements. I mean, first it has it's got 2,000, like that's showing like 1,000 cubits out, and then it shows. Then it says, so it says, shall reach from the wall of the town outward 1,000 cubits, but then it says 2,000 cubits on each side. So is it 1,000 or 2,000 or and then it's tried to reconcile it. So you got 1,000 cubits out. But then, so from one side of the out, it'd be 2,000. So, but I'm not sure that I'm still not sure that really does much. I don't know. It still makes it kind of confusing. I'm not sure.
The city's 1,000 cubits across.
That's what this diagram's assuming, is that the city's 1,000 cubits across, so that's where they can reconcile it. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I looked at that and I was like, that's kind of confusing there. But it also, it also could be kind of different editors, kind of changing stuff a little bit, and so when they didn't reconcile everything exactly,
Perfect cube.
yeah. Yeah. So, oh, um, but yeah. So that's, I mean, the first part is, I mean, they are to have, um, they're part of, place to live. That's, they are guaranteed a place to live, and and each tribe gives according to their size of their inheritance. So, you know, if it's a bigger tribe, they have a bigger piece of land. They give more. Always try to make it fair, just. And then there's supposed to have the cities of refuge, and I think already one of the maps that I had before. Is it going to go back to? I don't remember which map it was. Well, nothing wanting to cooperate today. Let's see. I know one of the maps that I already had here showed the refuge cities. I thought. Yeah, maybe not. Well, maybe I didn't get that one. Sorry. Thought I had one that showed the refuge cities that they had. My bad. But there's three on on the one side of the Jordan and three in the land of Canaan. So there's they have got three both sides. And it's it says anybody that but then it gives specific examples. If anybody who strikes another one an iron object and death ensues, they're a murderer. Then he'd be put to death. Anyone that strikes another with a stone and it causes them to die, they're a murderer. Anybody strikes them with a weapon of wood, they die. They're a murderer. So it gives some very specific examples, and it says now if they die in these ways, if somebody hits them with the blunt object or something and they die, then that's on the person that did it. I mean that's murder. And let's see. It said detailed instructions for the cities of refuge and for determining guilt and intention in the matter of murder or manslaughter are given in 35:9 through 34. The holiness of God's promised land could be threatened through the shedding of human blood, one of the most serious defilements. Murder and its defilement of the land could be expiated only through the blood of the murderer. And I was just this week looking back at the story of Cain and Abel, doing some private study, and even there, when God comes to Abel or comes to Cain and he's like, "Where's your brother at?" And Cain says, "Well, my brother's keeper." That he said, but then God says, "What have you done? Your brother's blood calls to me from the ground." So even back then, with the shedding of the blood, there was the ground itself was made impure. I mean, it defiled the ground, and and then and then one of the things that we've seen all the way through is when they're they're supposed to go in and cleanse the promised land because there has been so much shedding of blood in the promised land. That all. I mean, we see. There's so many the human sacrifices. There's so much evil and violence in the promised land before they go, and that's why they are told to go in and cleanse it. And so then if one of them intentionally kills somebody, then that is defiling the ground again, and then it needs to be, atonement needs to be made. But it does give grounds. I mean, if somebody, like if somebody dies and it wasn't intentional, there's a different punishment. It's not, and it's not considered murder. And I guess in the cities of refuge give them a place where they can go, but to be tried. Somebody like family member or somebody that would be avenging the death of the one that died. They can't go into these cities of refuge after the person. And so that gives a chance for the person who killed the other person. Give us a chance for them to go stand trial, and before they're just the death is avenged. So it's not taking another life, for no reason. And
What does it say they must stay in the city until the death of the high priest? What does
Yeah.
it mean there?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Does that
Yeah, I don't know if it
like
really-
down,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
28.
yeah,
It might have said it before there.
right.
Back up in 25, yeah.
Yeah, and here I think just says the person was then to remain in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. Violation of this provision would make the person vulnerable to blood revenge by a relative of the victim. I don't know if there's actually anything that says why that is.
Priest be part of the trial.
Hmm.
Let me see what the footnote says. How long was did the high priest serve? You say what long became high priest? How long? Did they have a certain time that they served?
They did.
I
think-
So is it lifetime since it talks about the death?
No, it's not lifetime. Because if you remember the story of Jesus, his trial and resurrection, there was Caiaphas who was the high priest, and then his father was still around. So you had both, the high priest and the father. And I think it is a set time. I don't know if it was a year or if it was just whenever, like they kind of laid it down. And but I'm not. Yeah, I haven't seen anything that says why that was the case.
Footnote doesn't explain that.
Yeah. Yeah, my commentary or my footnotes don't explain it. Might have to look into that a little more. But, it may be because the priest might have been involved in the trial, and I don't know, or maybe it just kind of it's kind of like, maybe it's kind of like the, every so often, if somebody owed a debt and they were made a slave, they had to be freed after so often, and maybe, what that does is it gives a certain time limit where they have to kind of stay there. After that, they can go home, go back to their ancestral land. They can, maybe resume their life. So they have their time of punishment, but then it gives a chance for them to go back home.
And it's an indefinite, it's not like 7 years.
Right.
It's however long he lives.
Right. Yeah. So so there is a punishment period, but it's not. It's kind of like I said, it's indefinite. But they would, unless they die first, they would still have a chance to go back home and maybe go back to their life.
It's almost like he took that other person's life, and this person's life, the priest's life, is the measure of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did read on over here, and this may be part of it, that the two witnesses were needed.
Right.
The accuser and the high priest.
Mhm. Yeah.
It says, the law took justice just as seriously as murder. A person could not be put to death by the testimony of only one witness.
Right.
Two were needed.
Mhm.
Maybe the second one had to be the high priest.
Uh-huh. But yeah, and that's the other thing it talks about. Yeah, the two witnesses that, it has to be. You can't just kill somebody on the word of one person. Because then anybody could come up and say, hey, they did such and such, and it could even be the one that actually did the killing. Say this person over here killed them, they murdered them, so they need to be killed for it. So but there has to be another witness, and we see that in the trial of Jesus. They couldn't find two witnesses whose testimony agreed. Even though they were trying to bribe them, trying to tell what to say, they couldn't get it lined up. But even then, they had to have two witnesses in order for it to put Jesus to death. So, we do see that later on played out. But
didn't it end up? I don't remember. Caiaphas said he's being accused of blasphemy. What more do we need?
Well, it's because when they finally asked Jesus a question, and he answers them, and then they're like, oh, we all heard it, and so that.
How do you go from needing two witnesses to you hear him blaspheming?
Yeah, it was because at that point they were all witnesses to hearing what Jesus said.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
okay.
Because Jesus said that in front of everybody, and so when he answered them, at that point they're like, "Why do we need more witnesses? We all heard it."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at this too. So the death of the high priest, he could go back to his own property. That's kind of like Jesus dying for us. After we sin, and then Jesus had died for us, so we're forgiven. So
he paid
the high
his life.
priest, yeah. The high priest is
Okay.
And Jesus is the high priest.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Hebrews. He's the great high priest.
Funny how it all.
Yeah.
Once you start digging,
right.
it all makes sense.
I know, it's so much, the New Testament, Jesus was like,
And we would have never figured it out.
Right.
Well, I've been trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
but I didn't get on that track.
Okay. Yeah. So, but it's a good question.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, again, it always goes back to the intent of these laws is to ensure the purity of God's holy land, which the new generation is about to receive. So, all these things, might kind of seem out of place, but it's all partly to encourage them, saying you're about to receive this land, so you need to know how to live in it. So it's kind of pointing forward for them. That's the setting of it, so we need to remember that setting. So it's giving them concrete details on how to live in the land. So, okay. Anything else you see in that chapter?
I was just thinking now, when we have trials, somebody's murdered, you can come up with any number of years. Just depends on the details. You can kill somebody and serve, I don't know, I'll say 6 years. I don't know if that's reasonable or not. Or for the rest of your life. It's like this was black and white. Like if you killed them and they proved that you killed them, you're gone.
Right.
Where now it's so much more lenient.
Yeah.
You still have to serve, but the time you serve is so varying.
Right. Yeah, and in our culture, they give so many chances. Like, for one thing, you have so many chances to appeal, to try to, prove they're innocent or before you are put to death if you want to be. So in every state, I think it's even different on that. So. Yeah.
And then if you have good behavior while you're serving, you can have your sentence reduced.
Right.
So they're basically, I don't think there's many states that still has a death penalty, do they? You don't hear, I know now, I don't hear about
Yeah.
as many people being executed
Right,
as
there's,
it was
Right.
when I was younger.
They
Yeah.
put
I
a
mean,
hold
they're
on it, too.
moving away.
They put a hold on it. For
Yeah.
one reason, because they can't get their drug or something. too.
Yeah.
But they
Well,
don't
one-
use not-
what
yeah,
state-
They keep on appealing and appealing.
Right. And what state was it recently reinstated the firing squad?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. So I mean, maybe that was because they couldn't get the drug. I don't know.
That's exactly right. They couldn't get drugs, so now they have a choice between the firing squad and the electric chair. So they're going back to
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I remember reading that they had a choice.
Right.
What a choice to make.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, I know now, like, now we do look at things a little bit different because we look at things through the filter of Jesus' sacrifice for us, you know. But it, you know, one of the things that this does is it tells us, I mean, how important, you know, purity is, you know, purity, and not just, you know, the people and the land. I mean, you know, if we want God to bless America, then, you know, we as a people need to be following Him and following His commands, but also, you know, the land itself, you know, bears the brunt of, you know, I mean, you know, things that we do, you know, the shedding of innocent blood, and I mean, it makes a difference. You know, this right here makes that very clear. You know, if you know, we don't turn back to God, if we don't purify this land, and I mean it. I mean,
And with the rate of murders and all that's going on now, we're
It's
far,
crazy.
far from being purified. I
Right.
mean, look how many people are murdered every day in these cities. And,
mhm,
I mean, every time I pick up my phone, just about even all during the day,
yeah,
there is somebody that's murdered somebody or something, and that's just right around here.
right,
Not counting cities like Chicago
Mhm.
and all these other big cities that is just
right,
numerous murders every day.
yeah. I mean, we're getting so desensitized to it now. I mean, like, there was another, did you say school shooting or something? I mean, that was,
It wasn't school.
or what was it?
At Publix.
Oh, okay,
Today.
but public, but it was,
a man,
yeah,
woman, and a child died.
yeah.
They said one of them was a suspect.
And even right here in Winston, you know, we're hearing about, you know, like, and people just being caught in crossfire, you know, and
Mhm.
killed. I mean, it's right here too. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I remember, I don't know, it was a year or two ago, some little child, I don't remember if it was a girl or boy, was sitting in on their sofa watching television, and they got shot
Right.
through the wall of the house or through the window. I don't remember
Yeah.
what the details were, but they're, you know, it was like you were saying, caught in the crossfire.
right,
That's what
Yeah,
made me think
I
of
think
it.
it's, I don't know, it's not, it's been, I'd say in the last 2 or 3 months. Wasn't it in Hickory where some little boy was riding in the car with his mother and somebody drove by and just shot in the car and killed the child, you know? I don't know
Mhm.
how to find
Right.
anybody like
You don't necessarily have to have a reason anymore. You just do it because you feel like it.
right. Yeah, and,
And
it's
road
just, right.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, and when we talk about wanting God to bless America again, and, you know, we've started to cut, you know, I know there's been a big movement, you know, to really try to turn back towards God and repent and humble ourselves. But, I mean, but there's also the issue of blood that's on our hands, and the blood that, I mean, that has defiled the land. I mean, and, you know, we have to deal with that somehow. I know, you know, we might do it a little differently now because we do have the blood of Jesus, the sacrifice of Jesus, but still, you know, that, yeah. It's-
Makes you wonder if there's any hope. The way
Right.
you're wording it.
yeah, well, and even with the Israelites, I mean, when they went into the
Yeah.
land, like we'll see in I know Deuteronomy, you know, they're like, well, we'll see in the Deuteronomic history, you know, the next few books we'll see when they went into the land, they did not completely cleanse it like they were told to do, and they left. I mean, in some instances, left whole cities, of the Canaanites, or different ones that were inhabiting the land. And what that did was that was temptation for apostasy. That was temptation for the Israelites to start worshiping these other gods, and they often did. And even, having in places even where where they had local synagogues, instead of the local gods, of the people in that area were being worshipped right alongside God, and sacrifices and everything just all together. And so, that's one of the reasons they never. That's probably why they never fully inhabited the land that they were promised, because they didn't live up to their part of the bargain. So, yeah, and eventually got expelled from the land, but God warned them.
More than once.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, a lot of things to think about. But I've been thinking about that, all the way through Scripture. The blood is, they really believe that's, the life force is in the blood, and and blood, shedding of innocent blood defiles the land, but then the shedding of innocent blood also saves us. So, that side.